Is it you that one day you could hear my name?
Welcome to the K Agenda. I'm Kay, and this is today's agenda. Today, we are going to be talking about white American liberalism. We are at an interesting time in U.S. American history, and despite the harm that's being done to communities of color and women of all backgrounds, there's still a nagging issue with the way some liberal white people are communicating with other people. And this is no more clear than an exchange that I saw on Bluesky recently between a black lawyer and two white women, one of which gets it and one of which doesn't. So wanted to just kind of go over that and then unpack the exchange a little bit and really just kind of talk about how, this mindset needs to change if we are going to survive whatever that even looks like, the stuff that we are going through right now. And just a note too, because I know how y'all like to, get upset and recenter yourself. This is not me slandering YTPPL. This is me making observations and also using personal and historical knowledge to inform what I'm saying. So relax. If it doesn't apply to you, move on, babe. All right, so let's set the cast of characters here at the heart of this Bluesky exchange. So we have player one. We're going to call P. And he is a black lawyer that I follow who has been very outspoken about just the state of the U.S., his criticism of white voters who voted for what we currently have. Then we have player two, who is a retired white woman who is a former lawyer and a current humor writer. And then we have player three, who is the white woman who gets it. And this really, it became engaging to me because a lot of other things that he was saying just were being proven right by this exchange. But then it really started to aggravate me because it's just a lot of, for lack of a better term, white womaning happening. And it's too much. So in response to a separate user posting that, quote, the majority doesn't want to recover from this, speaking to the collapse of U.S. democracy and civil rights, etc. And P wrote, in other words, white people don't want to recover from this. Republicans are right about that. White America saw both options and clearly made their choice. This is why we can't have nice things. White America. These folks opposed universal health care, ignore the climate crisis, and so much more. End quote. I mean, it's a fair assessment given the voting results of the last election. So, to which player two responded, I'm a retired lawyer and a humor writer. I'm also a lefty white woman who detests Trump and has written hundreds of anti-Trump limericks. I was planning on following you until I spotted all your anti-white posts, end quote. To which player three responded, quote, us white people being responsible for electing Trump isn't anti-anything. It's a fact. And if his posts make you uncomfortable, good. They should. Try to get past that discomfort. Then try not to think about this from an individual perspective, but as a group/whole, end quote. To which player two responds, while I appreciate your input, I am not persuaded. Plenty of blacks voted for Trump or stayed home, and plenty of whites voted for Kamala Harris. Moreover, sexism on the part of both blacks and whites had plenty to do with Trump's win. I don't follow racists, no matter what color they are. Girl. Maybe it's the state of everything, existential stress, and just being over it. But to me, this kind of liberalism is very, very, very dangerous because just from that brief exchange, just look at the hostility and the lack of accountability and the personalizations. Yeah, let's unpack this real quick. So you have a black man responding to another black person who is also a lawyer, who is making an astute and concise assessment of the last elections and the ramifications that we're all currently experiencing. And unprovoked, as usual, this lefty white woman, and just the term lefty kind of bugs me. We'll get back to that. But she responds with, first, unnecessarily qualifying herself, these professional qualifiers. I don't know if that was a conscious choice, unconscious choice, I don't know. But that's racist when you just have to do that with a black person. Like, just white people note that, please. And then to just say that, yes, you're anti-Trump and You've written hundreds of anti-Trump limericks. So, okay, and what are we supposed to do with that? Like, so, and this is, I think, a part of a bigger problem where it's like, because you do part of the work, you put blinders up to the rest of the white supremacist bullshit that, white women are unfortunately known to continue to hold up. Like, you felt, first of all, how are you going to come onto a black person's page and tell them that they're being anti-white when they're literally just essentially, sure, some of them may be some opinions, but those opinions are based on facts, numbers, and also realities and lived experiences. So, like, who are you to be, interjecting anyways? But then you have a white woman who gets it, who comes in and just clear as day gives you an out, says, hey, zoom out. Think about this as a whole. Look at the numbers. This is a reality. You may feel uncomfortable, but you just have to feel that. There are people who are literally disappearing from their families right now because of the decisions people who look like you made. And so it's an interesting thing to witness when you have people who are allegedly on your side who are also quick to flip that switch and become a Karen in a sense, So this whole discourse kind of had me thinking about a time in, I think it was college, I don't know, but learning about how food marketing in the American food industry, is, and like the little tricks that they use to sell you one thing and, give you another. The fact that player two, in this case, used the term lefty so prominently, it made me think about how when there is a certain ingredient, so let's say it's chocolate, right? And you are expecting to have like a chocolate product. But if it says chocolatey, that means that that company is not required to, it's not required to be 100% chocolate. It can be some cocoa powder and some like 90% water. And then they'll call that chocolate. You know what I'm saying? But most of the word is chocolate, so you think it's chocolate. And I think about this in the same way of being a lefty. It's like, it's a very like fence riding kind of thing where it's like, I support gay rights, but those trans folks, it's very like, give yourselves outs. And that's very half-assed, just like that chocolatey treat that you want, that you thought was chocolate, but is just a bunch of filler. So I really was thinking about that, and it really made sense, and it kind of clicked to me. Like, yeah, like it's the reason why so many lefties are just so quick to turn their backs on different communities when, it seems like it's politically or, whatever kind of convenient. You've seen people like Gavin Newsom. You've seen other Democratic politicians who are lefties who just fell right into the right-wing anti-trans talking points and, were willing to just throw trans people under the bus for some sort of political gain. Who knows what that actually would have been, but it's not the case. And this is another example of that, because we're at a time where brown communities, black communities, queer communities, specifically trans communities are being severely harmed. Severely harmed. Yet we have people who are willing to say, I'm on your side, while also berating you for calling them out on their blind spots or, their hypocrisy or whatever, the issue is. And the fact that you had a third party who is the same identity of the woman in question, just completely disregarding that perspective, saying, while I appreciate your perspective, I'm not persuaded. And mind you, the not was in all caps, which is why I had to, say it like that. And it's just like, just that quickly. This is in text, so you have time to think before you respond. But like, this was your automatic reaction just to say, I'm not persuaded. I don't follow racists. It's like, see, like how liberal, how lefty are you really? If you think a black person talking about statistics about white people in a specific time period is anti-white, whatever the fuck that means, or racist. Like that mentality, that thought process is essentially what has killed the Democratic Party. Like that type of shit. And this may be a generational thing. I mean, actually, no, what am I even saying? It's not a generational thing because I hear young people saying shit like this all the time. But it's a huge problem. And as a person who likes to meet everybody at whatever intersections they're at, I've seen this way too much, and y'all gotta get this shit together. Like, we really gotta get this shit together because the rest of us are out here, being hurt and dying, and y'all are gonna be a part of all of that. And you have a way to fix this by owning what your community has done and continues to do and uphold, and have a reckoning, because every other community has to have some form of a reckoning when something, like, it's your turn for that reckoning. So I hope that through this little exchange, if you are of said demographic, and just try to catch yourself when you're responding to certain things. If you have knee-jerk reactions to something online, or if somebody says something, like, people always say, think before you speak. Like, think about the optics. Think about the layers of whatever it is that you're talking about. And also, just, like, stop telling Black people that they're being racist against white people. Like, that shit is so fucking stupid. Like, stop that. It's 2025. Please stop that shit. All right? Anyways, that is just my thought on where we are right now. And I also really want to give a shout out to everybody who is in LA protesting ICE, and, really also everybody around the country, because there are communities in the Midwest, in New York, who are resisting. And we have to fucking resist. There are a lot of people who have capitulated and have realized that there's no point in doing that, because no matter what, these motherfuckers are out to terrorize all of us and get us. So you got to resist. And shout out to everybody who's protesting. Shout out to people who are donating, doing anything to, just be positive in the world, because these people are trying to sow chaos, and they're trying to split us up, divide us. And we can't let that happen, especially now, because a lot of lives are on the line. So shout out to all the protesters, and catch you on the next one.
Oh yeah, babe, is it you that one day you called her my name?